pretty out of date and that we're in the process of updating. Character of the neighborhood, it does not meet the third one listed there. The findings of fact in the report state this specifically and provide the rationale for why it does not meet. Criterion D does not meet. Criterion E does not meet. F does not meet. G does not meet. H, it meets this. There is not necessarily a concern about the capacity of the transportation network as a result of a rezone. Criterion I, it meets this one in staff's opinion. Economic impact of the proposed use on the community, it possibly meets this, but really not able to determine. Criterion K, it does not meet that one. And the recommendation certainly, clearly, staff did not recommend approval of the rezone to the Planning Commission and does not currently recommend approval of the rezone. I want to focus on a couple of these criteria just to dig a little deeper here, the ones that I feel are the most pertinent. If you can allow me. So if you look at criterion B, the character of the neighborhood, I'm just going to read verbatim from the record, from the staff report. An analysis of compatibility of the proposed zoning should address potential and desired future uses and not necessarily the current undeveloped state of adjacent lands. The land surrounding the Gardner Road I-35 interchange has the potential to be any of several uses, including but not limited to a regional retail or entertainment center, hotels and related restaurants, or the sale of cars, trucks, or other large and bulky merchandise displayed outside. Some of the uses permitted in the proposed C3 zone may be compatible with these uses. Other uses in the C3 zone are not. I want to also address criterion D for just a minute. This is the suitability of the property of the uses to which it has been restricted under the applicable zoning district regulations. The subject property is suitable for the retail and other uses permitted by its current C2 zoning. Restricting the property to the uses permitted and conditional in the C2 district does not deny the owner reasonable and economic use of the property. And I think that's kind of obvious. This is probably the third use on the property, you could say, because there's already a liquor store and a gas station convenience store. I also want to just focus a little bit on criterion F. This is the extent to which approval of the application would detrimentally affect nearby properties. The negative effects of the uses permitted in the proposed C3 zoning are related primarily to aesthetic impacts. The outdoor display of vehicles and large merchandise compared to well-designed buildings creates visual clutter in an environment oriented almost exclusively to automobile travel. The outdoor storage that tends to accompany contractor storage yards is generally not attractive, and in the opinion of Gardner planning staff, it is sound planning practice and land use regulation to limit contractor yards to sites that are less visible and to areas that are more industrial in character. Other uses permitted in the C3 zone but not in the C2 zone, such as wholesale facilities and major auto repair, may have potential negative effects not compatible with some uses permitted in the C2 zoning. So I don't want to go over all of these, but just wanted to give you an idea of the findings of fact that support the recommendation. If you look at the staff report, it's the original one, dated April 23rd, you'll find this on the beginning on page 2 of the staff report. Some of the other considerations, spot zoning, and Gardner Road as a gateway. And again, I'm going to paraphrase from the staff report. Case laws generally define spot zoning as the creation of zoning districts on a map that are limited to one or a few small parcels that are not contiguous with other parcels similarly zoned. They're not zoned in the public interest, but are created to extend privileges to a single property owner or to a select few, and are created in a manner that does not further the community's comprehensive plan. In the gateway consideration, I've heard some people say that this is probably the most important gateway to Gardner. It certainly has probably the most potential for being an attractive gateway at this point. Again, I'll paraphrase from the report. The undeveloped nature of the lands along the edges of Gardner Road and the accessibility and visibility of the lands from the interstate and from the street. Gardner Road may be generally thought of as a principal gateway of the community with the potential to create either a positive or negative image of Gardner. The zoning of the lands along Gardner Road and the uses permitted and ultimately developed on Gardner Road will be a major factor in how businesses and residents benefit from Gardner Road and in how Gardner is perceived by visitors. While the potential for Gardner Road as a gateway is consideration, staff acknowledges that no policy to encourage Gardner Road as a gateway has been articulated or adopted. So I guess it's an observation by staff in reviewing this that Gardner Road has a lot of potential as a gateway to the city, but also recognize that there's not a policy, it's not in a plan or in the zoning code stating that it's a gateway. However, those are the findings that support the recommendation. And with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Can you go back to the map?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we can wait for public comment. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, if we could, are you just looking for clarification?
A little bit, well, yeah. I guess, and Mike, you may not know the history here, but it's my understanding that up until a few years ago that the property across the street where the Shell station is today was at one time C2, got rezoned to C3 specifically because they wanted to put a car wash in. Correct? Not correct? I mean, does anybody?
I did a little bit of research on that, and my understanding is that might be true of that particular parcel, but most of the lands that are zoned C3, there's a large area that's zoned C3. It goes back to 2001, 2002 possibly. We looked in the record, we couldn't really find what the reason was for the rezone, but it was approved for C3.
Okay.
There was, I will add though that I believe where Marvin's Tow Service is, that was rezoned to C3 more recently, which is, it's hard to point out on the screen, but it's along 191st.
It's between the existing C3 where the Shell is and the C2, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think where the Shell is the one small, or at least the contiguous parcels. It's not the entirety of the...
No, it's not, but it's my understanding that this kind of all happened at about the same time.
Okay.
That's my
Okay.
Okay.
At this time, I would like to open the floor to public comments, and we will bring you back, Mike, for questions from council in just a few moments. If there's anybody here that would like to comment publicly about new business item number 7, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Good evening. I'm Angie Jones. My address is 18336 Mimosa Court, Gardner, Kansas. Do you guys need a copy of the presentation, or Mike, did you say it's already in there?
We have it.
We have it.
Unless you changed it.
I didn't change it. I just got off the 20-hour flight, so I haven't had time to do anything.
I'm going to go ahead and pass this out. It's the one that's in your packet. It's a little bit difficult to read.
Oh, grayed out.
I am short one, I think, but I only had about 20 minutes to know I needed to make copies for you guys, so I apologize. I got as many made as I could. And Mike, do you have the presentation, or?
I don't have the hard copy that you just handed out, but
The one that was on the notes?
It is in the packet, and I kind of recall it from the...
All right. All right. Well, we'll just go off the packet then. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight to the council and to you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to the zoning. I'm not going to take you through the entire packet. I think everyone here is fairly familiar with what's at stake here as far as the rezone goes. I do want to point out a couple key items in the packet, and I do want to talk about a couple topics that Mr. Hall spoke about as far as the rezone. You know, first and foremost, I want to address the gateway issue to Gardner, which I think, keeps coming up over and over and over again. And if you go to the back pages of your packet,